Modern trucks are massive. They're loaded with technology. They cost $70,000, $80,000. Some of them push $100,000 out the door. And yet, there are tiny old 4x4s, some of them built before your parents were born, that can go places these modern giants simply cannot follow. Not because they're more powerful, not because they have better electronics, but because in off-road capability, size is often your biggest enemy, and the engineers who built these machines understood something that the truck industry has completely forgotten. These are the 10 mini old 4x4s that modern big trucks still cannot beat. We're counting down from 10 to number 1, and I promise you, by the time we get to number 1, you will never look at a modern truck the same way again. Stay until the end, because number 1 is still sold brand new today for $80,000, and it will go places your $70,000 truck simply cannot follow. You heard that right. $8,000. Let's go. Number 10. Steyr-Puch Haflinger. This is the one that stops engineers cold when they look at the specifications. The Steyr-Puch Haflinger, built in Austria from 1959 to 1974. Named after the Haflinger horse, a hardy alpine breed from the mountains of Tyrol, known for its sure-footedness on steep terrain and its ability to carry heavy loads over ground that would exhaust larger animals. The engineers chose that name deliberately. It describes the vehicle perfectly. The Haflinger is powered by a 643 cubic centimeter, air-cooled horizontally opposed twin-cylinder engine, producing approximately 27 horsepower. The total vehicle weight is approximately 580 kilograms, lighter than a modern quad bike with a full fuel load. But the weight and the engine power are not why this vehicle is on this list. The reason the Haflinger belongs here is the portal axles. Portal axles are a specific type of axle design where the wheel hub is mounted below the axle centerline, with a small gear set at each corner that drops the driveshaft output down to wheel height. The effect is that the vehicle's entire axle and differential assembly sits significantly higher than with conventional axles, dramatically increasing ground clearance without raising the center of gravity. The Haflinger has portal axles on all 4 wheels, not just the rear, not just the front, all 4. The ground clearance under the axle housings, the most vulnerable underbody point on any off-road vehicle, was 280 millimeters. Modern overlanding trucks spend $15,000 on portal axle conversion kits to achieve what the Haflinger had as standard equipment in 1959. The Austrian Federal Army was the primary customer. Maximum gradient capability, 65%, approximately 33 degrees of slope. Water fording depth, 400 millimeters. Independent suspension on all 4 corners kept every wheel in contact with the ground over severely irregular surfaces, even when the body was deeply tilted. The Swiss Army also adopted the Haflinger for mountain operations. Both armies continued using it in active service for decades after production ended in 1974, because nothing available to replace it performed as well in alpine terrain. Steyr-Puch also engineered the 4-wheel drive system for the first-generation Fiat Panda 4x4, coming up later on this list. The same company, the same engineering philosophy. From the Haflinger's portal axles in 1959 to the Panda's viscous coupling in 1983, Steyr-Puch produced some of the most innovative small 4x4 engineering in history, and almost nobody outside Austria talks about them. 580 kilograms with portal axles in 1959, and modern trucks still pay $15,000 to copy it. Does that shock you? Drop it below. Number 9. AMC Eagle SX4. This one is an American story, and it is one that should make every American truck fan genuinely angry. The AMC Eagle SX4, 1981. Built by American Motors Corporation in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And here is the fact that changes everything. This is America's first mass-production, full-time, all-wheel drive passenger vehicle. Ever. Not Subaru, not Audi, not BMW. American Motors Corporation, a small, financially struggling automaker that most people barely remember today. Beat every major manufacturer in the world to full-time AWD in a production vehicle. The system used a Borg-Warner transfer case that sent torque to all four wheels permanently, with no need for the driver to switch anything. You got in, you drove. All four wheels were always working. In 1981, when Ford, Chevrolet, and Dodge were selling trucks with part-time four-wheel drive systems that required stopping the vehicle to engage. The SX4 was the sporty two-door hatchback version of the Eagle range, lower, lighter, and more nimble than the wagon variants. It sat on a 97.2-inch wheelbase, weighed just over 1,300 kilograms, and had 7.5 inches of ground clearance, more than most crossovers sold today as all-terrain vehicles. But here is the part that makes this story genuinely painful. AMC was running out of money. By 1987, Chrysler bought the company and immediately killed the Eagle AWD program. Then Chrysler spent the next 20 years trying to engineer full-time AWD systems as good as the one they had just destroyed. Every Jeep Grand Cherokee AWD system that came after was playing catch-up to technology AMC had perfected a decade earlier. The Eagle SX4 never got the credit it deserved. Too small, too unknown, from a brand fighting for survival. But the engineering was real, the capability was real, and the fact that a tiny American automaker with almost no money out-engineered the entire industry in 1981 is one of the most overlooked stories in automotive history. AMC beat Audi Quattro to full-time AWD. Did you know that? Drop knew it, or mind blown, below. Number 8. UAZ-452 Bukhanka. Look at this thing for a second. This is the UAZ-452. In Russia, they call it the Bukhanka, which translates directly as bread loaf, because that is exactly what it looks like. It is, without question, the least aerodynamic vehicle on this entire list. It has the visual elegance of a shipping container with windows, and it is absolutely, genuinely, ferociously capable. The UAZ-452 has been in continuous production since 1965, 60 years. It has never stopped being built because nothing designed to replace it has ever actually been better for its intended purpose. That is the most honest engineering verdict a vehicle can receive. The market kept buying the original because the original works. Four-wheel drive with a 2-speed transfer case, locking differentials, 220 millimeters of ground clearance, a payload capacity of 800 kilograms, and a body and mechanical layout so simple that a trained mechanic can fully rebuild the engine by the roadside with basic hand tools. In Siberia, at minus 40 degrees Celsius. That last point is not an exaggeration. The Bukhanka was designed specifically to operate in conditions that destroy modern vehicles. The electronics that make a modern truck comfortable, the sensors, the modules, the computers, the traction control systems, all of those things fail in extreme cold. The Bukhanka has almost none of them. It starts and drives in conditions where a modern truck's electronics simply stop functioning. Russian military medical units use it. Search and rescue teams across Siberia and the Russian Far East use it. Geological survey teams working in the Ural Mountains use it. Not because Russia can't afford modern vehicles, but because in genuinely extreme conditions, mechanical simplicity is the most important feature a vehicle can have. Every modern truck manufacturer claims their vehicles are built for extreme conditions. The UAZ-452 doesn't claim anything. It is just still running, 60 years after it was designed, in places where nothing modern would last a winter. Would you daily drive a bread loaf that genuinely never breaks? Yes or no? Drop it below. Number 7. Fiat Panda 4x4 first gen. It is a hatchback. The Fiat Panda 4x4, first generation, launched at the Turin Motor Show in October 1983. Designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro at Italdesign, one of the greatest automotive designers in history. And underneath that tiny boxy body is a four-wheel drive system that was genuinely revolutionary. Here is the detail most people don't know. Fiat didn't engineer the 4x4 system. Steyr-Puch did, the same Austrian company behind the Haflinger at number 10 on this list. When Fiat wanted to put four-wheel drive in the Panda, they went to the best, and the best delivered. The The system was permanent all-wheel drive with a viscous coupling center differential. No buttons, no switches, no modes to select. The car managed traction distribution automatically, which in 1983 was cutting-edge technology. The viscous coupling allowed the front and rear axles to run at different speeds in normal driving, reducing drivetrain stress and improving fuel economy, then locked up automatically under wheel spin to transfer torque where it was needed. Ground clearance was 185 millimeters. The weight was approximately 760 kilograms, lighter than most modern city cars. The wheelbase was 2,160 millimeters, giving it a turning radius so tight it could navigate mountain tracks and forest paths that a modern SUV would need to reverse out of. The Fiat Panda 4x4 won the Rally Vinho da Madeira multiple times in class. It competed in ice racing across Scandinavia. Alpine rescue services in Italy, France, and Switzerland used first-generation Panda 4x4s for mountain access because they could reach locations that larger vehicles simply couldn't navigate. A hatchback, weighing 760 kilograms, with rally wins, mountain rescue service use, and a four-wheel drive system so well conceived that its architecture is still relevant 40 years later. Modern big trucks weigh 2,500 kilograms and need computer-controlled terrain modes to do what this little Fiat did, with a viscous coupling and 4 small wheels. Fiat Panda or Suzuki Jimny, in a real off-road situation, pick one and fight it out in the comments. Number 6. Subaru Brat. This one has a story that is equal parts engineering brilliance and absolute corporate creativity. The Subaru Brat. The name stands for Bi-Drive, Recreational All-Terrain Transporter, one of the greatest product names in automotive history. It launched in 1977, full-time four-wheel drive, a full load bed. A Subaru Boxer engine mounted low in the chassis, giving it a center of gravity so low it handled more like a sports car than a truck. But the most extraordinary thing about the Brat is in the bed. Those 2 rear-facing jump seats, bolted into the cargo bed, complete with seat belts. They are not there for practicality. They are there because of the United States government. The US imposed a 25% import tariff on light trucks, the so-called chicken tax, dating back to 1963. Subaru bolted 2 rear-facing seats into the cargo bed, reclassifying the Brat as a multi-purpose passenger vehicle rather than a light truck, which meant it qualified for the lower passenger car import tariff. The 25% tariff disappeared. It is one of the most creative pieces of regulatory engineering in automotive history, and it worked perfectly. Beyond the seats, the Brat is genuinely remarkable. Full-time four-wheel drive in a pickup truck body in 1977, years before any American manufacturer offered it. The Boxer engine placement gave it a near 50-50 weight distribution. The independent front suspension gave it ride quality that full-size trucks of the era couldn't match. And President Ronald Reagan bought one in 1981 for his ranch at Rancho del Cielo in California. When the leader of the free world chooses your vehicle as his personal ranch truck, you are doing something right. The Brat ran for 17 years in production. The closest modern successor, the Subaru Baja, was cancelled after 5 years. The market made its verdict very clear. Reagan owned one and Subaru beat the import tax with jump seats. Would you actually sit in them at highway speed? Comment your answer. Number 5. Volkswagen Iltis. Number 5 connects directly to one of the most iconic performance cars ever made. And almost nobody knows the connection exists. The Volkswagen Iltis. Built from 1978 to 1988. Designed to replace the DKW Munger as the primary light reconnaissance vehicle for the West German Bundeswehr. Small, boxy, and entirely unremarkable looking. It weighs approximately 1,280 kilograms. It has a 1.7-liter Volkswagen petrol engine producing around 75 horsepower. And it has one of the most sophisticated four-wheel drive systems fitted to any production vehicle at that point in history. Permanent all-wheel drive. Not part-time, not selectable, permanent always-on AWD, a lockable center differential, a lockable rear differential, a ZF transfer case, with low and high range. The system was designed to handle the worst terrain the German military would encounter, and it delivered completely. Now here is where this story becomes something extraordinary. In the late 1970s, a group of Audi engineers attended Bundeswehr winter performance testing. They watched the Iltis navigate ice, snow, and mud with composure that rear-wheel drive vehicles simply couldn't match. Lead engineers Jörg Benzinger and Franz Tengler had an insight that changed performance car engineering forever. If permanent four-wheel drive made a military vehicle this composed on the worst possible surfaces, what would it do to a performance car on a racing circuit? They took the Iltis drivetrain concept back to Audi, developed it, refined it, and in 1980 unveiled the Audi Quattro, the first permanent AWD performance car, and one of the most influential vehicles in motorsport history. Every Audi with Quattro badging, every RS, every S model, every high-performance Audi ever built, traces its lineage directly back to the Volkswagen Iltis. In 1980, a Volkswagen Iltis entered the Rally Côte d'Ivoire in West Africa, one of the most demanding rally events in the world, and delivered a result that stunned the professional rally community against purpose-built competition vehicles. A NATO military Mini 4x4 is the direct ancestor of Audi Quattro, and almost nobody knows it exists. A NATO military truck invented Audi Quattro. Did you know this? Drop knew it or never knew below. Number 4. Suzuki LJ50 to LJ80. This is the one that even dedicated off-road enthusiasts have usually never heard of. The Suzuki LJ50. LJ stands for light Jeep, and light is not an understatement. The LJ50 weighs approximately 680 kilograms, less than the engine block in a modern diesel pickup truck. Launched in 1975, the LJ50 was powered by a 550 cubic centimeter three-cylinder two-stroke engine. Two-stroke. The same basic engine principle used in motorcycles, chainsaws, and outboard motors. In a four-wheel drive vehicle, in 1975. The two-stroke engine has an extraordinary power-to-weight ratio for its displacement. It is mechanically simple, fewer moving parts than a four-stroke, easier to service, lighter, and more compact. Combined with the LJ50's minimal overall weight, it produced a vehicle with a capability-to-weight ratio that larger, heavier trucks simply cannot replicate. The LJ50 ran a two-speed transfer case, solid axles front and rear, leaf springs, a body so compact it could navigate trails physically inaccessible to full-size vehicles. The wheelbase was 2,000 millimeters, shorter than the distance between the axles on most modern pickup trucks. The Japanese self-defense forces used the LJ50 and its successor, the LJ80, as reconnaissance vehicles. The military requirement was specifically for a vehicle that could operate in mountainous terrain, dense forest, and narrow agricultural tracks where conventional military vehicles couldn't enter. The LJ series met that requirement completely. The LJ80 followed in 1979 with a more conventional 797 cubic centimeter four-stroke engine, increased payload, and improved durability. But the fundamental philosophy remained unchanged: small, light, simple, and capable of going anywhere. This entire LJ series directly led to the Suzuki Jimny, and ultimately to the Samurai, the number 2 entry on this list. You can draw a straight line from the two-stroke LJ50 in 1975 to the most iconic Mini 4x4 ever built, and it all started with something that weighed less than a riding lawnmower. LJ50 or LJ80? Which one would you rather own, and why? Drop it below, I want to see the debate. Number 3. Jeep CJ3B. This is the Jeep most people don't know, but that every serious off-road engineer respects more than almost anything wearing a Jeep badge today. The Jeep CJ3B. The most immediately obvious thing about it is the hood, taller than any other Jeep before or since. That distinctive high hood profile is not a styling choice, it is pure function. The CJ3B was built to accommodate the Continental F-head Hurricane engine, a 2.2-liter four-cylinder unit with an unusual overhead inlet side exhaust valve arrangement that produced more torque at low RPM, making it significantly better for low-speed off-road work and for powering farm equipment. The engine was too tall for the previous CJ3A bodywork. Willys raised the hood. The CJ3B was the result. The wheelbase was 80 inches, 2,032 millimeters. That is shorter than the rear overhang of a modern Jeep Gladiator. The turning circle was so tight that the CJ3B could drive straight through switchbacks and mountain trails that no modern Jeep can navigate without a three-point turn. It weighed approximately 1,100 kilograms, less than half the weight of a current Wrangler Rubicon. Approach angle, 46 degrees. Departure angle, 35 degrees. Breakover angle, 23 degrees. Modern off-road vehicles achieve these numbers only with lifted suspensions, cut bumpers, and aftermarket armor costing thousands of dollars, and the CJ3B came from the factory, with geometry that rivaled all of them in 1953. Willys licensed the design to manufacturers around the world. Mitsubishi built the CJ3B in Japan from 1953 to 1998, 45 years. Mahindra in India began building it in 1954 and continues a derivative today. Spain, South Korea, Brazil, and the Middle East all produced licensed versions. No other vehicle on this list was built under license in more countries or for a longer continuous period. The modern Jeep Gladiator has a wheelbase of 137.3 inches. In tight switchbacks, it needs a three-point turn where the CJ3B drives straight through. That is a capability that modern big trucks still cannot beat. Mahindra still builds a version of this Jeep today. Does that make it the most important 4x4 ever designed? Tell me why I'm wrong. Number 2, the Suzuki Samurai. And before we talk about what this truck can do, we need to talk about the war. Consumer Reports, one of the most powerful consumer advocacy organizations in the United States, published a road test declaring the Suzuki Samurai not acceptable. Their test involved a lane change maneuver at speed. The vehicle, they claimed, was prone to tipping. Their recommendation, do not buy this vehicle. The article triggered a national controversy. Sales collapsed almost overnight. Congressional hearings followed. Suzuki fought back, calling the test methodology flawed and the results deliberately misleading. The legal battle lasted 14 years. In 2004, a California jury found that Consumer Reports had acted with malice and reckless disregard for the truth, and awarded Suzuki $60 million in damages, later settled out of court. And through all of it, through the controversy, the lawsuits, the collapse in sales, and the years of headlines, the Samurai owners never wavered, because they knew something Consumer Reports never tested. On a trail, the Suzuki Samurai is one of the most capable small 4x4s ever built. Wheelbase, 2,030 millimeters. Curb weight, approximately 870 kilograms. Ground clearance, 200 millimeters. Engine, a 1.0-liter four-cylinder, producing 45 horsepower. 2-speed transfer case with low range. Solid axle, front and rear. A suspension design that gives the Samurai extraordinary wheel articulation, keeping all 4 tires loaded over terrain that causes modern trucks to lift a wheel and lose traction entirely. On a rocky trail, a modern truck with a long wheelbase and limited suspension travel lifts a wheel on uneven ground. And the moment a wheel lifts, traction to that corner is lost. The Samurai's short wheelbase and long travel suspension mean it wraps around the terrain rather than fighting it. Both axles stay loaded. All 4 wheels drive. The vehicle moves forward where others stop. Modified Samurais compete in rock crawling events today, more than 40 years after the model was introduced, because the fundamental architecture is still mechanically sound for technical terrain. Clubs dedicated to Samurai ownership exist across every continent. Online communities number in the hundreds of thousands worldwide. The Consumer Reports controversy didn't kill the Samurai. It made it legendary. Consumer Reports tried to destroy the Samurai and lost a $60 million lawsuit. Justice served, or was there merit to their test? Drop your take. Number 1. Lada Niva. And here is the car I teased at the start of this video. 3.72 meters long. Permanent all-wheel drive with a lockable center differential. Standard, not an option. In 1977. Still sold brand new today for approximately $80,000. Let me say that again. $8,000. Brand new. Permanent AWD in 2024. The Lada Niva sits at number 1 on this list, not because it is the most extreme off-roader here. The Haflinger at number 10 has portal axles that nothing on this list can match. The Samurai at number 2 has an articulation advantage that modern trucks can't replicate. But the Niva takes the number 1 position because it delivers all of its capability, permanently, reliably, without compromise. At a price point that makes every other vehicle on this list look expensive. In 1977, most American trucks were still fully two-wheel drive. The Niva came from the factory with permanent AWD, a lockable center differential, independent front suspension, coil springs on all 4 corners, and 220 millimeters of ground clearance. The engineering was not just ahead of the Soviet competition, it was ahead of the global market. And here is the detail that makes engineers stop and look twice. The Niva uses unibody construction. No separate chassis. At a time when every serious off-roader used a ladder frame, the Niva's engineers chose unibody, because it made the car lighter, stiffer, and more torsionally rigid under twist. The combination of unibody construction with coil springs all round gave the Niva a ride quality and handling balance that Land Rover and Toyota couldn't match at twice the price. The French space agency, CNES, used Lada Nivas as support vehicles at their rocket launch facilities in French Guiana. The terrain around the South American launch sites was too difficult for conventional support vehicles. The Niva handled it without modification. Farmers across Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and the Caucasus mountain regions still run fleets of them today. Russian search and rescue services use them in terrain that destroys modern vehicles. Mountain communities in Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan run them because the alternative, a modern SUV, cannot survive their roads for more than a season. The cheapest new truck in America costs more than 3 times what a brand new Niva costs, and the Niva will go further off-road than most of them. That is the argument of this entire video in a single sentence, and the Lada Niva makes it better than any other vehicle on this list. Number 1. An $80,000 car built in 1977 that still goes, places your $70,000 truck cannot follow. Lada Niva at number 1, agree or disagree, and what should have taken this spot? Best argument gets pinned. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. Genuinely. This list took a long time to research, verify, and put together, and the stories behind these vehicles deserve to be told. If you want more content like this, underrated, overlooked, and genuinely capable vehicles that the mainstream automotive media ignores, subscribe. There are more lists coming, and the next one might make this one look ordinary. Until then, keep the wheels turning, keep the diffs locked, and remember, the best truck isn't always the biggest one.